This is the important stuff.
Okay.
Kendra Andrews of ESPN about to join us.
Big fan.
Well, both of us, for sure.
Not just saying that because she's on hold.
No.
She is on hold, right?
She's on hold. Yes, she heard you.
Really big fan.
Thompson's slump to start this season feels different. His contract negotiations are weighing on him, sources told ESPN, and he appears to be noticeably more frustrated during games. As for Andrew Wiggins, sources told ESPN that after missing 2 months last season over a still undisclosed personal matter, he did not take the time necessary during the summer to get back into the shape ahead of the season. His lack of physical conditioning annoyed some within the organization, according to a team source. Hi, Kendra. It's great to have you on.
I'm just here for the hype.
What a coincidence that we would have you on.
That's crazy that you were just sitting there right when I was done reading your article.
That's wild.
Let's start with Klay because we started the show with that. Why do you think he's so mad?
Well, I mean, I think when you look back, right, even over the summer, and there's reports of him asking for the max. He wanted that max extension. The Warriors didn't give it to him. He asked for what he feels like he deserves, and he still feels like he deserves that. And then you enter a season, and he has gotten off to slow starts in the past. That is absolutely true, and he does always shoot his way out of them. He plays his way out of them. But then when you start kind of combining everything else, that's when you kind of get to where we are today. And like, you know, you read from the story, there are moments where you look at him on the bench and he's sitting by himself at the end of the bench. He, you know, I can see him kind of hitting himself on the head after he takes a certain shot. He got really frustrated the other night. He threw his towel on the ground. And Klay's been a guy who wears his emotions like quietly on his sleeve before, right? That's not new. But when you take into just context everything else that's going on, it adds frustration from within, right? From within an individual person.
And you mentioned in your piece about his catch and shoot threes, and that's always been his bread and butter. And now he's in the bottom 5 among those shots, among the 26 players, as you put in your article, with 70 or more attempts per second spectrum. Is that part of it, just maybe the realization that Father Time is tapping him on the shoulder, combined with the contract and combined with the record?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's definitely, yeah, like everything's combining. And Klay, you guys will remember this, like when he came back from both of his injuries, which, by the way, both of those separately could have ended someone's career, right? So the fact that he is even in the position that he's in is incredible. But he always said, I hate comparing the Klay of before to the Klay of now, right? But at a certain point, it's not necessarily about comparing one to the other. It's about adjusting your game to fit what your body can handle, what your age can handle. And the things that he did before to shoot his way out of this, as you just read out that stat, like, yeah, it's not happening. So you have to find different ways to get yourself going when those old tricks don't work. But as we all know, for anyone in any way of life, changing something that you have historically been so good at, it's easier to just say you have to do it than actually go and do it.
Kendra Andrews, ESPN with us, Willard and Dibs. I'm still even stuck on him saying to Tim Kawakami yesterday, I don't care what people say. And I'm like, yeah, you do, more than just about anyone that we watch. I mean, like, he's probably at the head of the line based on, let's see, Devin Booker, Jaren Jackson, and now I guess Tim Kawakami, and on we go. Like, I guess that whole dynamic, how do you see that affecting what he's trying to do?
In terms of just like caring what people think?
Yeah, the noise that he clearly hears.
Listen, I clearing out any kind of noise is such a hard thing to do, you know, and I deal with clearing out my own noise, so I can only imagine how difficult it is to do it when at that level. At the same time, though, you do have to figure out a way to separate church and state, to figure out, okay, what are the people that actually matter saying versus what others are saying. But I also think that you you can't let that then affect the way you're going to play. And you can't let that affect your attitude towards everything in the game. Though back and forth with Tim Kawakami, Tim just asked him about Steve Kerr's patience with not just Klay, but the entire starting lineup and how they're not playing as well as they did the past couple of years, right? And Klay said, well, do you think I should move to the bench? And I think at the end of the day, though, all adjustments need to be on the table. If the Warriors continue to struggle as they have, if their starting lineup continues to struggle as it has, as Steve has said, I'm looking at all these different combinations, and I think that should go for every single person on that court. And actually, that Phoenix game a couple weeks ago, when Steve left his bench players in until the final minutes of the game, I thought that was a big statement, that he didn't put Steph back in until the final couple minutes to go and try and close out that game. I think that was the first step in Steve putting his foot down and saying, I'm going to play the people that are actually putting us in positions to win.
And that was wild because they got within one possession and still, Steph was standing up, but he was not at the scorer's table. And, he didn't come back in. And, fans were going crazy on Twitter or X or whatever. Kendra, which one do you think is the bigger factor for Klay right now? Is it the way he's playing, or is it the weight of the contract not being resolved?
I think it's the way he's playing, because everything is connected, right? And I know I've said that a couple of times, but when you're trying to prove yourself in something, like the contract at this point in the season, right? Like, it's not super common for big contracts to get done right now. You try and get them done the summer before. If they don't happen in the first X weeks of the season, okay, maybe that's going to be a later in the year kind of thing with an understanding that will happen. But if you're not playing well, then you probably start to overthink and you get in your head, okay, well, if I'm not playing well, what does that mean for X down the line when it is time to re-up these conversations again? So I think right now it's focusing on just trying to get out of the actual funk. He believes that he will. The team believes that he will. But at a certain point, you have to start asking, and not just for Klay, when is it no longer early in the season? When is it no longer the start to the season? And when does it just become the reality? And I think that goes for the Warriors as well as Klay individually.
Kendra, let's switch over to your report about Andrew Wiggins. How would you describe how the Warriors are feeling about his offseason?
As I said in the story, there was some annoyance of you missed the last 2 months of the season, or not full 2 months, but of the regular season, right? Dealing with a family matter, and the team was very, they protected him. It was actually very impressive to me. There were no leaks from anywhere on what was going on with Andrew and his family as he dealt with that matter, which is really impressive. You give leeway, but you just do hope that, okay, once you start the season, you come back ready to go. And I think, Wiggins looks smaller than he has in the past. He doesn't look quite as muscular. He's not attacking the rim as much as he used to. And so there was some okay, why didn't you come back ready to go? Why didn't you enter camp ready to go? And then after camp, a month into the season, why is catch-up still being played?
Yeah, it's remarkable, too. And you put in your article about the traditional starting lineup that was the best lineup in basketball last year. And this year, they're the second worst among lineups to play at least 75 minutes together on the defensive end. Would you attribute that to what we've talked about with Klay and with Andrew? Is it Draymond's absence or a collection of all those factors?
It's going to be a collection of all those factors. Obviously, missing Draymond has been a big hit. And getting him back, the hope is that getting Draymond back, okay, that's going to, and even Draymond said it in his press conference the other day, it's going to address some of the communication and just making sure everyone's on the same page. But you don't just plug Draymond back in and poof, automatically everything is going to be better. The Warriors, they were also without Gary Payton for a couple of games, but it's just a collective thing. Even before Draymond was suspended, the Warriors struggled, right? They were struggling in areas. That's why those numbers are the starting lineup, right? Like you can look team-wide, but the starting lineup of Steph, Klay, Andrew, Draymond, and Kevon are struggling. So sure, you take Draymond out, but then you lose that lineup. So it's a combination of everyone getting it back together.
Kendra, this one is something we were all sitting here talking about earlier, because when you wrote that Wiggins and the time he missed for the still undisclosed reason, and moments ago you were just saying about how impressive it was that there still was never a leak. Steiny brought this up earlier, that there was actually a national report at one point that it was his dad's health. And I think collectively we've all sort of blown it off like, nah, that's not it. Like, we don't believe it for some reason. And so when you referred to it as still undisclosed, can you explain what it is that would have you still describe it that way, even though there was a report at some point?
Well, I think that there, from my understanding, it's a big topic. And, I think that people within the team who know all of the bits and pieces who needed to know do know. But I do, and there was a big report, but I'm trying to just be careful with my words here.
I got you.
And I think when I said undisclosed, it's still just, like you said, it really wasn't talked about much. It wasn't fully unpacked. And, I think also I'm just not going to talk too much about it, because I think it's just a nuanced issue.
Yeah, I hear
appreciate
you.
that.
I hear you. I hear you on that.
Well stated, and it's obviously something that's very personal and private, and until it's actually disclosed by him, nobody wants to be the one to actually put a name on exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Kendra, when we go back to 4 weeks ago, we talked about connectivity. We heard about vibes. Yeah. Jordan Poole was gone, and everybody was like, man, everybody's just at a barbecue together. And now, look where we sit. Would you describe this as a locker room in turmoil, or would you use a different word?
I would use a different word, because last year when you walked into the locker room, there was a clear, you said disconnection. There was a clear disconnection. Sorry, big trolley's coming by me right now.
Are you at the amusement park right now? What is going on?
Sounds like she's at the club.
I wish I was. Yeah. I wish I was at an amusement park right now. But no, there was a certain disconnection, right, in the locker room last year that's definitely not there this year. Instead, it's more just last year there was a clear thing you could point at to why things weren't working. This year, it's not so much that. Everyone in the locker room likes each other and supports each other. And and even still, people are saying within the team, we have so much faith in this team and what they can accomplish. And on paper, we look so good. Everything should be right. So the locker room and the vibes are still there. Where the vibes aren't great is just out on the court and putting it all together. And that's what they're really trying to figure out. But I'll kind of circle back to what I said before about Klay and kind of open it up to the whole team. What I'm curious to see is, everyone's still confident. Everyone is still saying, we can put it together. We can put it together. It's still early. But when does it become not early? And you just have to ask yourself, is this not it? Every single person can like each other. Every single person can enjoy playing alongside each other. But that doesn't necessarily equate to getting a ton of wins and winning a championship. I think that for Warriors fans, that's weird, because the other times that the vibes were so good, they won 4 championships, right? So it's just a new adjustment for people who are following the Warriors, that are in the Warriors, are adjusting to.
So from the outside looking in, we see a team that's 8-9, but inside the locker room, you're not sensing any whiff of desperation or disbelief at this point?
Not at this point. And I think part of it is because Steph was out for a couple games, then Gary, and then Draymond. And so even Steve Kerr said at practice the other day, now that they're healthy, and knock on wood for them that they stay healthy, they can really start to form who they think they are, and they can really start to see it come to fruition. At least that's the hope, right? Now, that, again, it's not going to be easy, and it's easier said than done. Steve Kerr has always been a guy to say the first 20 to 25 games is when you see what you were really made of. So, and he was asked about that the other day. Someone asked him, does that still stand true? And he said, ask me after the 20th game. So kind of a wishy-washy answer. But again, I think they want to win. They know they need to win. So there's a desperation for that, but they aren't in panic mode. They're not blaming one another. There's still a cohesive group in the locker room.
Gosh, great stuff. Hey, Kendra, really good article, and thank you for jumping on today.
Thank you. Yeah, good to talk to you guys as always.
All right, there it is. Kendra Andrews, ESPN, joining us with the inside goings on with the Warriors.